Hi, welcome to lesson 4 of the 5-part series on the best ADHD diet to calm your child down and focus so you can spend more quality time with your child instead of screaming and yelling battles. So today we're going to talk about the most common nutrient deficiency in kids with ADHD. My name is Anatai. I'm a registered dietitian and also a board-certified specialist in pediatric nutrition with a focus in functional medicine. And I help kids with ADHD achieve their food potential naturally without medications. So let's get started. So when we think of malnutrition, we often think of pictures showing starving kids from Africa, or if you remember, your parents used to remind you, eat all your food on your plate. There are kids starving in other countries. So even though malnutrition is still a huge public health issue in many developing countries, in our country, overweight and obesity are becoming a serious threat to our kids in the United States. So overweight and obesity are actually forms of malnutrition in a form of overnutrition. And malnutrition, either over or undernutrition during childhood, can affect health and performance of the child when they become an adult. And malnutrition is associated with poor IQ level, cognitive function, school achievement, more behavioral problems such as attention deficits and emotional instability. Children in the US have better access to food, but that doesn't mean that they have better nutrition or better health, unfortunately. And according to the Center for Disease Control, CDC, between year 2015 and 2016, nearly 1 in 5 school-aged children and young people 6 to 19 years old in the United States has obesity. Children in the US, they eat too much empty calories from processed food that are missing essential nutrients and causing overweight and nutrient deficiency. And in fact, there are decades of research to support the relationship between ADHD and obesity. And remember from lesson 1, we talked about how low dopamine level and the effects of sugar can cause sugar cravings and overeating in people with ADHD. And in fact, people with ADHD is 4 times more likely to become obese than someone who doesn't have ADHD. There are hundreds and even thousands of biochemical reactions that is happening in our body constantly to keep us functioning and alive. Each of these chemical reaction needs at least 1 minerals or 1 vitamins to help to turn on that reaction. So when there's a vitamin or mineral deficiency, your body is not able to function properly, and that's when you have something called disease. So when we look at our anemic food supplies nowadays, with all these genetically modified organisms or GMO products that are not suitable for human consumptions, also manufactured food that has been stripped off of all the essential nutrients, and also over-farming that cause mineral depletion in the soil from which our fruits and vegetables come from, you can see how our body can easily become nutrient deficient over time. And do you see why it is so difficult to get proper nutrition nowadays? So we as human beings can only thrive on pure, simple food and a clean environment, just like any other animals. But unfortunately, all these is affecting our children. And kids with ADHD are found to have deficiency in things like magnesium, iron, omega-3 fatty acid, vitamin Bs, vitamin Ds, and many others. So in the case of ADHD and autism, these deficiency can actually result from either not having a proper intake, poor absorption. We talk about digestion, I think, in lesson 2. And also, the body could be using up some of these nutrients a lot faster due to stress. Malnutrition is one of the nightmares of many parents. New parents bend over backwards to do anything they can to make sure that the babies are fed properly because they're afraid that poor nutrition intake can impact the children's brain development. And this is the irony that I see every day. brand new parents wants to make everything from scratch with pure organic ingredients because I want the best for my baby. Then later you see toddlers, school-age kids, and teenagers. All they eat are junk food, things like sugary breakfast cereal, Pop-Tarts, chicken nuggets, cheeseburger, fries, hot dogs, pizza, chips, cookies, etc. So what are all these brain-boosting nutrients can you name from these foods? So in today's lesson, we'll talk about the 4 most common nutrient deficiency in children with ADHD. So we'll cover omega-3 fatty acid, magnesium, zinc, and iron. There are many more, but we'll just talk about those. So there are many studies. We're going to talk about omega-3 fatty acid first. So there are many studies that show that kids with ADHD have low blood level of omega-3 fatty acid, and on average, 38% lower than kids without ADHD. And also, kids who have low dietary omega-3 fatty acid intake are 31% more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. So there's a strong correlation. And low levels of omega-3 fatty acid are also associated with things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, apraxia, depression, and anxiety. In fact, omega-3 fatty acid made up about 8 to 10% of the brain tissue, and it is a major component of the myelin sheaths on the nerve cells. And the myelin is the fatty coating on the nerve cells, and this is the myelin sheath is the insulation for the brain cells, kind of like the plastic covering outside the electrical wire to prevent things from being misfired. So the electrical current or signal stays on this path, and so it doesn't cause seizure or any crazy thing like that. So when your child is little, he or she is making a lot of these myelin sheaths in the brain, and that's the reason why the brain actually double in weight by the time your child reached 2 years old. And that's also the reason why babies and young children needs to be on a high-fat diet. I remind parents about that every single day. A low-fat diet is harmful for children because low essential fatty acid can cause the myelin sheaths to degenerate and also not to make enough. And that's also also low omega-3 fatty acid also kind of make the body not able to make the dopamine receptor properly. So that means that the dopamine signal might not work as well. And remember, that's one of the things we talk about in lesson 1 when we talk about one of the causes of low dopamine level. So our ancestors, thousands of years ago, they eat a diet that is 2-to-1 ratio in omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acid ratio. Today, a typical Western diet is 20-to-1. So which means that we're eating way too much omega-6 fatty acid compared to, or not enough omega-3 fatty acid. So this comes no surprise because the Western diet is mostly full of a lot of processed or mass-produced animal protein, also vegetable oils and trans fat that are in processed food. So basically, we just eat too much omega-6 fatty acid in the form of processed food. And to correct that, you just need to reduce the dietary omega-6 fatty acid intake while increasing omega-3 fatty acid intake to achieve the optimal 4-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So the good news is that you can kind of cheat a little bit here. So research and studies have shown that omega-3 fatty acid supplements, or you can use fish oil supplement as well, can improve ADHD symptoms such as hyperactivity, inattentiveness, aggression, anxiety, impulsiveness, and learning difficulties. And omega-3 fatty acid is one of the most studied nutrients in kids with ADHD, and therefore it is one of the supplements that I recommend the most, and almost every single patient responds well to fish oil. So that's the omega-3 fatty acid. And then next we're going to talk about mineral deficiency. So does your child seems to be hungry all the time, crave for sugar or salty food? does your child also have anxiety and moodiness? Chances are mineral and electrolytes deficiency may be the cause. So minerals are inorganic substances that the body needs to function properly. Your body needs it for growth and development, making brain chemicals, and just basic cell function. And your body cannot make any of these on its own, so it requires that you get them from the food that we eat every day. And because of the way that agriculture is practiced nowadays, there's over-farming, use of fertilizers, and also soil erosion. Our soil is really not that mineral rich anymore. And also, plus the food that is being processed have a lot of the essential minerals taken off during the manufacturing process. And also our daily life, like nowadays, even though we have a lot of daily convenience, but also our life is a lot more stressful. So just having that stress also depletes our minerals in our body. So basically, your brain cells cannot fire properly when there's not enough minerals in your body. It's just like electricity. You cannot conduct electricity through distilled water. So think of it this way. Your body is kind of like a machine because it runs on electricity just like any other machine does. And that's the reason why having enough electrolytes and minerals is so important. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 3 most common mineral deficiency in kids with ADHD. The first one is magnesium. And magnesium, there are actually a lot of studies that show magnesium deficiency is very common in kids with ADHD. There's one study that shows 72% of kids with ADHD have a magnesium deficiency. And there's a strong correlation between the magnesium level and the IQ and hyperactivity as well. There's another studies that show even 95% of kids with ADHD have a magnesium deficiency. So what's magnesium? Magnesium is one of the most abundant mineral in the body and is involved in about 300 metabolic reactions. And magnesium deficiency is associated with, you ready for a long list? With impulsiveness, hyperactivity, sensitivity to loud noises, insomnia, depression, anxiety, irritability, restlessness, panic attack, fatigue, both salt and carbohydrate cravings. Also, carbohydrate intolerance. Remember in lesson 1, we talked about how the ADHD doesn't do well with carbs? So over the last century, the magnesium content in our food has been declining thanks to all the highly processed food that is in our supermarket, modern fertilizer use, and over-farming. Also, a diet that is high in genetically modified grains and legumes, refined sugars, soft drinks, and caffeines, all of these depletes the magnesium in our diet. And it is estimated that about 50% of Americans of all ages don't get enough magnesium from the diet. And that's the magnesium. Next, we're going to talk about zinc deficiency. So in a recent study, they show that 70% of kids with ADHD have a zinc deficiency. And those with lower zinc level, so basically the lower the zinc level, the worse are the ADHD symptoms in hyperactivity, inattention, oppositional, and impulsivity scores. And then another studies of 118 children with ADHD show the same thing. The lowest blood level of zinc have actually the more severe conduct problems, anxiety, and hyperactivity as rated by the parents. So zinc is an essential trace mineral. What that means is our body needs it, but in a very small amount. So it is needed in the central nervous system, which includes your brain and your spinal cord. It is also needed to make essential brain chemicals such as dopamine, serotonin, the GABA, and norepinephrine. And there are also lifestyle factors that can deplete zinc as well, causing deficiency or imbalance. So zinc deficiency is more common in children with ADHD. Now we know that. And also in kids who are very picky and eat a very limited diet of mostly processed food as well. So things that are rich in zinc are red meat, seafood, chicken, and some other vegetables. I'm not going to list that. But ADHD symptoms sometimes worsen with puberty as well because of the higher metabolic demand for the growth during puberty, and this can cause zinc to deplete. Also stress, I think I mentioned stress a little bit earlier. Like the stress hormone cortisol can actually block the activity of zinc. And like a lot of kids who play sports, who have a very busy practice and game schedule, they tend to can have a high risk of having zinc deficiency because of the demand from the sports. And it's even more so if they're vegan, because vegan don't eat meat. So remember, most of the zinc comes from meat or animal protein. And then environmental toxin, things like the bisphosphonates A, BPA, and the phthalates. These are found in everyday plastic products, containers, stuff like that. These kind of things can also deplete the zinc level in the body as well. So zinc deficiency can actually cause signs and symptoms now. Poor or loss of appetite, diarrhea, impaired immune function. Remember, we take zinc supplement to help with immunity. Poor growth, delayed sexual maturity, eye or skin lesions, delayed wound healing, taste abnormality, and mental tiredness. So a lot of picky eaters, like parents, will notice that they can pick out the slightest change in taste, or they can taste the different brand between chicken nuggets from McDonald's or chicken nuggets from the store. Like if your kids have that sharp sense of taste, there's a very high chance that he or she have a zinc deficiency. And I'll talk about that in another article. Okay, so the last mineral deficiency we're going to talk about is iron deficiency. So again, iron deficiency is common in kids with ADHD. They show that a low level of serum iron and low ferritin level are associated with ADHD symptoms like hyperactivity, inattentiveness, impulsivity. Serum iron is the iron that is swimming in the bloodstream, and ferritin is the iron that is stored in the cells and the tissues. So those are two different things. But you want to know, when you get your blood test, you want to know both numbers. So in fact, study shows that 92% of kids with ADHD have a low ferritin level. And kids who have iron deficiency are 67% more likely to have ADHD symptoms as well. And the lower level of iron deficiency, the more severe the ADHD symptoms and the cognitive impairment as well. So they also show that kids with iron deficiency do poorly in math and language skills. And low iron level is associated with sleep disorder, depression, low IQ, autism spectrum disorder, anxiety, bipolar disorder, delayed development, and mental retardation, which are all common in kids with ADHD. So basically, iron is needed to make brain chemicals such as dopamine and melatonin. And kids who have a lower level of ferritin, which is the storage iron, they will need a higher dose of ADHD medication to calm down. And then the other thing I also want to talk about a little bit is the Restless Leg Syndrome, which is also common in kids with ADHD, and is also common in kids who have a low ferritin level as well. So Restless Leg Syndrome is a condition where you just want to move your legs. It usually happens at nighttime or when you're sitting around or lying down. So just something common in kids with ADHD, and just saying most kids with ADHD do want to move. So iron deficiency can be the result of eating too much dairy product as well, because dairy products, things like milk, cheese, and yogurt, are a very good source of calcium. And the problem is when you have a lot of calcium in your diet, the calcium actually competes with the iron to be absorbed, because they're both absorbed the same way by the body. So when there's too much iron or too much calcium in your diet, less iron is being absorbed. And I've seen a lot of kids who become iron deficient because they're drinking so much milk, because everyone's telling you your kids need to drink milk. So chill out on the milk. Okay, so now you know iron deficiency is common in kids with ADHD, but I do not suggest to start iron supplement, because iron supplement is something you don't want to mess with, and it can be dangerous if you have too much of it. So I usually don't start anyone on iron supplement unless I did the blood test and check the iron level and make sure that they're both low. And depending on which one is low and which one's not, then I'll decide which supplements to use. So iron supplement not only helps with improving the ADHD symptoms, but it actually can also help with using less medication if you or your child's on the medication. So less medication also means less side effects from the medication as well. And also having an adequate iron level also helps to prevent lead poisoning, which is one of the causes of ADHD. And lead poisoning and other environmental toxins are discussed inside the Eat to Focus book. And that's the most common ADHD nutrient deficiency. So omega-3 fatty acid, magnesium, zinc, and iron. So I hope you find this information helpful. Let me know what you think and comment below. And in tomorrow's finale lesson, we're going to put together everything that we learned from the last 4 lessons and come up with the ultimate best ADHD diet, so you can stop throwing spaghetti around at the wall. And remember, ADHD doesn't doom your child to a life of underachievement. In fact, a lot of wonderful discoveries and inventions were made by people who have ADHD that helped my crazy wild child who couldn't read or write when she was little with the 4 steps that I laid out in the book Eat to Focus. And she's now a merit scholarship student majoring in pre-med at Loyola Chicago University. So stay strong and keep believing in your child. Check out the Eat to Focus book at Amazon.com to learn the 4 simple steps to get your child from 0 to 100% calm and focus. This information may change your child's future too. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you in tomorrow's lesson. Okay, bye.